Let's call this meeting to order. Welcome to our April 16, 2013 meeting.
It was in his hand.
Beautiful New Bedford.
He was holding it up.
I just want to start now. Our first order of business is the approval of the minutes of our March 19, 2013 meeting.
So moved.
Motion. Made a second. All in favor? Opposed? No. Minutes are approved. Our second item is the general manager's report.
Before you get to that, sir, may I just have a correction? As you notice, you received a notice saying Jack Tierney has invited the authority members, etc. I want to amend this to say Jack Tierney has arranged for the authority members and Port Council members to lunch at Davies Locker following the authority meeting. Transportation by van to the restaurant will be provided from the Roach Jones Duff Museum by the New Bedford Harbor Development Commission. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All of that is recommended. So the first item is the business summary for the month of February. The total number of passengers carried in the month was off 15.7% from the previous year. The total number of automobiles carried was off 12.5%, and the total number of trucks carried in February was off 6.5% from the previous year. In February, we had to cancel 11% of our scheduled trips due to weather and mechanical reasons. Also, there was one less day this year in February than last year due to leap year. As such, the authority's operating revenues and other income for the month of February were off $308,000 from our original budget projections. Our operating expenses and fixed charges in February came in $18,000 less than the amount that was projected in the operating budget. Our net operating loss in February was $3,723,000, some $290,000 higher than the amount that was projected in the 2013 operating budget. The net operating loss for the first 2 months was $6,783,000, some $187,000 lower than the amount that we had projected in the 2013 operating budget. Our revenues and other income for the first 2 months were off $200,000, and our operating expenses and fixed charges were $387,000 lower than the amount that was projected in the 2013 operating budget. Our cash balance in the operations fund at the end of February was within $8,000 of the balance that was projected in the authority's 2013 cash budget. So with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
The next item is an update on the website redesign project. Most, if not all, of the front-end development has been completed by IMAR, who is the website development firm that we contracted with for this project. We are now down to what I characterize as configuration issues that need to be successfully resolved before we can launch the new website. One of the final steps we are currently involved in is to run load tests, stimulated load tests on the new website to make sure that it can handle, at the very least, the same volume of users that are currently using our existing website. This includes a minimum number of users who are expected to be simultaneously making reservations on the new website, as well as the overall number of users that may be on the site at any one time. There are also internal and external tests dealing with credit card processing issues that need to be successfully completed under the website's final configuration. Needless to say, this project continues to take a considerable amount of the staff's time. 2 weeks ago, I was hoping that I would be here today telling the board that we are now operating under the new redesigned website. It is frustrating and very disappointing that I can't even tell you when these final issues are expected to be successfully resolved. I do know, though, that we can't launch the new website until we get past these remaining issues. And that is a basic overview of where we currently stand. Mary has any additional comments or?
Other than to advise you that I mentioned at the Port Council meeting last week, IMARC is continuing to work on these issues, and we are making progress. It is not the progress that we would like to see, where we would have been in the position that Wayne wanted us to be in this morning, but it is progress. They worked on it on Friday. We worked with them. They made several testing procedures, and they did make some progress. They were testing again yesterday through the day. It is something that, you know, it is taking a very, very high amount of time, but we do see that they are making progress, and unfortunately, these are things that do need to be tied up and resolved before we would be able to be launching.
Do we have an estimate on how much longer we're looking at, or is it too soon to tell?
All of a sudden, we were running the CPI compliance for the credit card processing, and it was spitting out the results of all these vulnerabilities that the system could have, that even with our internal testing that we're doing now, that it's also, the site is subject to external testing by the processing companies. And as a result of that, what IMARC recommended is that we bring all the operating system for the current servers up to the current latest version. And so that took about 2 weeks to get all of those servers up and back. In the meantime, we really couldn't do a lot of development done on the servers as they were being taken down, and to bring them up to their most up-to-date version of the software. So the load test is something that initially it wasn't meeting these goals that we have. Currently, our current system can handle 150 users making reservations simultaneously on our system. And so when you get up to 50 on the system and it's reaching 100% capacity, you have to go back and look at the way the programs are written, how we can take less pressure, fewer hits off the system that is using up all of that capacity. And then we have the load test and this PCI compliance testing that we're still. These are kind of the last 2 steps before we can launch. In the meantime, there's some other minor things that keep coming back that we have to address as well. But it's hard to say just how much longer this is going to take for them to go back and maybe reconfigure things the way that it's currently done. Is that going to affect some other part of the program that has to be then readjusted without any other changes that they're making? So it's very frustrating.
Mr. Hamlin.
Is there going to be a Steamship Authority app? I keep getting asked this all the time with this new system, or is that a separate issue?
It's going to be similar to what we have now, is that the system will detect if you're using a mobile device, and so you can bookmark this and use it, like add it to your home screen, and so it works similar to an app, but it's not an actual app that you would buy or that you would download. So it would just connect you to the so that's if you're using a mobile device. And you can also access the full website from that if you wanted to do that as well.
Mr. Marshall.
Are we incurring additional costs for these extended issues?
You know, all the additional programming costs, time that the programmers are taking. We're providing whatever assistance we can with our programmer, our house programmer.
Well, that's a given. That's really a common question.
But then we have consultants that are also involved. Now, there's 2 software consultants that are also heavily involved in this as well. So we are incurring those costs as well. And the thing is, we can't be working on other things while we're concentrating on this. So something that I was hoping was going to get launched last year, and then we would be moving ahead with some other improvements. We're still kind of bogged down with getting this up and running the way it should.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Is there any estimate as to how much more this is costing us than what we originally planned?
Eric, what was the original amount, about 200,000? So 194,000 was the original estimate, and we're up to about 360,000 now in costs. And this includes additional hardware that's separate from the. So we have, so we have the mobile app was done as part of this when we realized, I think it was 2 years ago, that we weren't going to be able to get this site launched for the summer. We said, well, at least can you build some kind of a mobile website for us? And so that was done, and that's been working fine. But now we're up to about 360,000 in programming costs, in development costs. And we've also had to buy some additional hardware. Originally, they thought that this could reside on a single server up in their office in Newburyport, with nobody around on weekends and anything like that. And we said, no, we're going to be controlling the hardware. So there's another $200,000 in hardware that we've incurred as well from the beginning, which we weren't anticipating at the beginning of this project. But we have to maintain the current system, and then we have to provide a platform for the development and the testing of the new system. So we need different servers and redundancy. So if one server goes down, then, or if the load kind of balances out the load between different servers. So, was there any other questions on that? Next is the update on the repairs to the old post dock. Do we have any up-to-date information on this?
We do. Things are progressing well. We will be putting in the last of the wooden piles today, and that will be all of the piles, all of the steel and all the wooden piles are driven in. Last week we got a large load of wood in finally for the decking and the stringers. We were able to deck about 60% of the old section that's been repaired. Now, they've now been able to move the cranes out to the end of that, and they will be decking the remainder of that in the next few days, the old section. That will then allow them to get the crane out to the new section. They'll set the final 2 pile caps on at the end of this week, probably. And then they will be able to put all of the stringers in on the new section and deck that over. We're still waiting on a couple of more loads on decking material. All the stringers are in, enough decking to do the old section has arrived, and we should know today when that's coming in. Right now it's not a problem for the schedule, but it needs to arrive pretty soon. So as far as the overall schedule, the contractor, Bill Cloutier, and our project manager out on our clerk of the works out there feel we're set to make the schedule. It's going to be tight, but we're going to make it as long as the last few shipments of wooden decking show up. There could be a few things still open, a railing here, or a light here, but the deck and the pier should be complete as of right now, according to the schedule.
Is the whole decking, is that all being replaced now? Is that all going to be brand new?
No. The decking repairs start probably about halfway out on the pier. When you go out there, it'll be obvious where you can see we did some repairs to some piles. And then that area, from about halfway to about 75% of the way out on the pier, that's still wooden piles and pile caps that were repaired. And that's redecked. And then from 75% out to the pasture walkway is all new steel piles and pile caps. So if you were going down there today, you'd see all the steel piles and pile caps, and about 60% of the old section would be decked over, and it'd be about 40%, which they should be able to finish in the next couple of days.
But when we rebuilt the pier, we married onto the left-hand side of the pier for that extra lane or 2 lanes.
Correct.
So is that patchwork, is there still old sections of the pier in there as well? Because didn't we have a contract at the very end to replace a bunch of it? And I'm just wondering, does it make sense to do all of it, or do we still have sections that are the old decking?
We still have probably, I don't know if it's 50%, but there's a section of the deck from terminal out that is old decking.
But it's fine.
It's worn, but it doesn't require replacement this year. It will probably put maybe half of that again in the budget for next year as a maintenance item, and then the following year we'll do the remainder of it.
And the wooden piles that have been left, they were not damaged from the storm at all? You said repaired.
The wooden, we didn't replace all the wooden piles, so they were acceptable. Some of them under the pier. Some of them were damaged in the storm. Some of the pile caps under that area that we worked on was damaged in the storm, and so we went in that area and replaced everything that required maintenance.
You guys know far better than I. My concern is, are we going to have weak parts of this pier now that, some of it's new, some of it's repaired, some of it's old? You understand my...
They aren't all of the same age, but they're suitable for what we need to do in Oak Groves for the operation. Some of it, any pier that's that large is going to have sections that you maintain over years. So
Right.
There's no safety issue or operational concerns with the pier that's left.
What if we would get a comparable storm again, like Sandy?
That section of the pier is probably not subject to the storm damage that...
Because it's closer to shore?
It's closer to shore, and that northeast corner is the bad point. And that's where we put the metal piles and pile caps and the better attachment to the stringers, and we've made the decking the weak link in the calculations, so that if it was another Sandy, and the worst case scenario was the decking would pop up, but the infrastructure would still be there.
Okay. Thank you.
The old area of the deck, Doc, you're talking about, had no damage from Sandy. The area we have not worked on yet.
Okay.
So another Sandy would take out the part that has just been replaced again?
I don't know if it's Sandy, a large storm that the wave swell exceeded the height of the dock could pop the decking off the dock. Not the piles, not the pile caps, not the stringers, but the decking on the top. And that's designed that way. We'd rather have the decking be pulled off than the entire pier damaged.
And the part that would be left not damaged, that we have just rebuilt, was upgraded from its previous...
From wooden piles and pile caps to steel piles and pile caps.
So that our exposure is significantly less on another major storm than it has been for now.
Correct.
Any questions on that?
Next it's an update on the Hyannis Harbor dredging request. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers issued a notice for public comments for the maintenance dredging project in the Hyannis Harbor Channel. The comment period ends on May 1st. The proposed work is expected to commence in late June, and the dredge is scheduled to be in Hyannis for about 2 or 3 weeks. At the moment, no additional money has been authorized to perform subsequent maintenance dredging if for any reason this work cannot be completed this year. The Corps has been working very quickly in response to our request for maintenance dredging. They have completed a survey of the current conditions of the channel. They've been working with the state and federal agencies to obtain all the necessary permits and approvals. Until the dredging is complete, we'll continue to monitor the extreme tide conditions in the channel to ensure that there is sufficient water under the authorities' vessels and that they do not touch bottom. This will continue to include delaying the arrival and departure of certain trips in Hyannis and perhaps leaving heavier trucks at the dock for a later trip as well to manage the draft of the vessels, as well as the clearance and the clearance. So I think, given the scope of the project, it's moving very quickly, and so we appreciate that very much. What the Corps has been doing, meeting with the local officials and state officials, federal officials for all the necessary approvals.
Can I make a comment? Would it be possible to put a travel advisory on the website that says something to the effect of it's possible that your trip could be delayed, because I've had people who come to me not knowing about the situation and end up floating around outside of Hyannis waiting for the tide to come in and delayed an hour or more. And had they known that, they wouldn't probably have traveled that day because of an appointment or something.
Was it recently?
Yes.
Because I thought we had already put that in place.
I haven't seen that. Just something simple.
We had something about tide conditions or something about the Hyannis, about delays.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
But,
Okay. Yes, sir.
They're starting the end of June in 2 to 3 weeks. Is that going to disrupt our schedules, the schedule of boats going back and forth with the dredging going on?
well, we'll have to work around it, but we want them to get in and do the work and get up. So do as much as they can do while they're here. So we're going to try to accommodate them as much as we can.
My concern is they're going to be working in the channel the boat needs, right?
Yeah.
So do they stop work and move the dredge when we come through, or?
Well, obviously there's going to be a lot of traffic at that time of year.
Right.
Between Highline and the Steamship Authority, other vessels. So with our larger vessels, we will have to coordinate that. We don't anticipate, blocking the channel.
That's what I'm wondering, yeah.
Anybody else?
Okay, and then an update on the Palmer Avenue parking lot improvements. Carl, again, do you have give a report on the parking status?
Moving along very well. Lawrence Lynch is doing a very good job out there. Working diligently. If you drive by, you can see that the retaining wall we're building between where the ice arena was and a wetland to the east, that is in. They're out there today moving materials and doing grading, trying to get down to the near final grading, so then we can put in the utilities for the lighting, the booths, the fiber optic for the communications, all of that. And talking to Phil Cody, the facilities engineer and project manager for Lawrence Lynch, they are still on schedule to meet the schedule for yesterday a little bit, and in the morning, and it's quite a change from what it was. It surely is, the amount of trees that came down, and the grading and the elevations, but it's, I think it's going to be a nice addition once we're done in about a month.
Where's our next meeting? Diana? I just think it'd be nice for us to work up there and just see it when it is walking.
In the game.
Okay.
So that completes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that. Next item would be the treasurer's report.
Good morning, everyone. In your packet, last month's meeting, I reported that the unaudited results for 2012 activity. Since that time, McLadry, the authority's auditors, have completed their review, and I'd like to report some adjusting entries that had to be made as a result. It changed the preliminary unaudited results. We had two entries, the first of which was a reversal of an accrual that we had for a dry dock expense related to the MVINO. The second one was the recording of an entry for pension obligations previously omitted in the statements. As a result, the net operating income, the capital grants, income from special purpose funds, and the pension withdrawal in the year was $2,780,000, or some $25,529 lower than I previously reported. At this point, they have completed their audit of activities. Expect those to be final numbers.
In my experience, this is a small number, and usually they pass on amounts of this. There was an offsetting difference here in between these two entries, so the net difference was an increase in operating expenses of over $25,000 on $80 million.
Yeah.
So that we have new auditors, and this is what they're required to sign off on the statements. So we follow it back and make those entries.
Good job. I can't imagine you get much closer.
Anything material or critical that needs to be addressed as a result of the audit?
The other thing that they indicated was in every year there's always a use of estimates, and the one thing that they have pointed out is that they think that the estimate that we have for allowance for doubtful accounts is too high. Based on our...
My question every year was that.
Well, the previous auditors had actually requested that we increase that. And now they're looking at it and saying that based on our history of collections, that number is too high, but they would pass on that one. So.
How much is it?
It's $75,000 is the allowance that we have.
Is that per year?
Well, we look at it each year. We've been averaging a little over $10,000 a year in write-offs for companies that go out of business or so we do if they file bankruptcy, we do file for the paperwork that you get small amounts of dollars. So.
When your exposure is one guy that owes you a lot of money, all of a sudden hitting the wall.
That was the justification for it being a higher figure.
How far out are they going to go anyways? I mean, I assume they get billed monthly.
On a weekly basis,
On a weekly basis.
We do the billing.
Excellent. Even better.
But all of a sudden you get one guy who files nothing without any notice to anybody for any reason, he blocks his door.
Yeah.
We do have shippers that do $25,000 to $35,000 in a week.
Sure.
So
those are 2 weeks. And
it doesn't take long for that to
yeah.
add up. So. But that was the only thing that we had. I just have some quick numbers for March if you'd like. The net operating loss for the month of March is expected to be $3,125,000. The projected net loss would be about $25,000 lower than what we had budgeted for the month. On the revenue side, passenger revenue is expected to be $25,000 lower than budget. Auto revenue is expected to be $10,000 lower than budget. And freight revenue is expected to be $30,000 behind budget projections. However, rent revenue and cancellation fees are up a combined $55,000. So overall, our revenues are up $30,000 for the month. And on the expense side, vessel fuel costs are expected to be $50,000 below what we had budgeted. Fuel averaged $3.39 a gallon. We budgeted $3.68 a gallon. The $3.39 a gallon represents a 5% decrease over what we were paying a year ago, which was $3.56. Our maintenance expenses is expected to be $330,000 above budget estimates. We have close to $800,000 for the O+ pier work that wasn't budgeted, but we do have a offsetting entry for the Island Home engine patch, which we received in February. We budgeted for March to receive in February. So overall, our general expenses are expected to be down. Our general expenses are expected to be down $175,000. That's primarily because of health claims. And then we expect overall our expenses to be $5,000, up $5,000 for the month. And the net operating loss for the year at the end of March is expected to be $9.9 million, or some $205,000 less than what we expected it to be.
Thank you very much. Procurement.
This is procurement. Steve,
I'm back again this month with the Woodsole Terminal Reconstruction Project feasibility study. And this month the staff is recommending that the board award the contract for the feasibility study to Berto and Iworks Architects, LLC of Boston. And it will be based upon the standard form for feasibility study contract used by the Massachusetts Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance, with the designer's basic fee in the amount of $300,000. The budget for this study is $450,000 because there will be probably $150,000 of additional expenses for reimbursable expenses. The State Designer Selection Board, after meeting on March 6th, selected this design team as the first ranked finalist by a vote of 9-1. Berto and Iworks is undertaking the feasibility study in association with the marine engineering firm of Moffat and Nickel, which will not only be the marine engineer for the project, but also the project's civil engineer and traffic engineer. Specifically, Ted Bell, who is the former director of terminal engineering for Washington State Ferries, will have primary responsibility for those two aspects. They will be responsible for the marine planning and traffic planning, as well as marine engineering and civil engineering, while the architects will have primary responsibility for the architectural design and overall project management. And both the marine engineer and the architects will collaborate on the remaining aspects of the project, such as the public meetings and presentations, of which there will be many, and terminal planning, site planning, and customer experience planning. The objective of the feasibility study is to determine how all of the Woodsole Terminal's current and future operational needs can best be accomplished either on the terminal property itself or at one or more other locations. Most important is determining how the terminal can accommodate 3 operational ferry slips, all of which will need to be reconstructed with longer transfer bridges and also may need to be realigned. The feasibility study will follow a 7-step process. At the moment, we have no preconceived notions as to where it's going to end up. So the architects and the engineers will develop a study work plan, just how the things will progress throughout the study. They will then collect and analyze data of the site and of our own operations. They will then conduct interviews with authority personnel and the community to prioritize outcomes and to develop programs for both the terminal building and the terminal site in general. And after they collect all this data, have the interviews and public meetings in Woodsole, They will develop 3 alternative approaches for achieving what they perceive to be the desired objective, and then they'll solicit our input and the community input on all of those objectives. And then the hard work is, at that point, developing a consensus solution, which we all hope will emerge from that in a lot of the feedback that they receive. They'll submit a draft report based upon that solution, and then they'll have that up for comments, and then they'll finalize the report. The study is expected to take up to 9 months to complete, and if we ultimately are satisfied with their work, we can then ask the same design team to develop the final detailed program and design for the reconstructed Woods Hole terminal. And in the hope and expectation that the board will so award the contract today, Bertone, iWorks, and Malfat Nickel have already tentatively scheduled a kickoff meeting with us on May 6th
In
in Woods Hole. And then they will be riding the boats to look at all of our other terminals and operations over that day and the next day as well.
Yes, sir. What happened to the lawsuit?
The bid protest which was filed by the second-ranked design firm. We met with them shortly afterwards. The second-ranked architect was not aware of everything that had transpired in the course of the selection process. And when they learned what happened through the bid protest, they were very professional about it. It was simply a matter of lack of communication. They did not understand why Bertone and iWorks design team was awarded the contract, was selected as the first round finalist.
Probably didn't understand they had to have 3 qualified, that the design board had to get you 3 qualified people. Right.
So,
Do we have any idea of what kind of money we're talking about for this in Woods Hole? I realize this is very preliminary, but
we had put into the advertisement that we could be somewhere in the realm of $20 to $25 million. And that would be phased over as many seasons as we need. That may not include all of the ancillary buildings and other sites. There are so many variables involved at this point that I don't think anyone can give a hard number as to what would be.
it sounds low to me. And we spent $11 million on it once.
17, I think.
Oh, final, yeah. We went in big.
And that had no acquisition cost for any property either.
Might this?
This might. The Woods Hole terminal is located in a velocity floodplain. And to the extent that we do any work on the building that exceeds 50% of the fair value of the building, which is going to be easy to do,
Right.
that would present very expensive construction obligations if we wanted to keep everything at that location. And it will probably, one of the issues, which is why we have everything open, one of the issues is it would be less expensive in order to take much of the administrative process off-site at another location. And the important thing, I think, is what everyone agrees is that we have to have 3 operational slips at that terminal. And that is going to be the driving force for everything else. And so there may not be room with 3 operational slips even to have an administrative building or anymore.
It's not that we need 3 operating slips to operate there on a daily basis. When you take one out for repair or overnight for bigger vessels, one vessel may tie up earlier than another. And we're moving vessels around now in the morning, delaying some of the departures because the first boat doesn't quite get out on time.
I've sat outside Woods Hole waiting for a boat to clear so you can come in when one of the slips has been under construction, so I understand that.
At the meeting last week, the Port Council voted unanimously to recommend that the board award the contract to Bertone and iWorks.
Jim,
Yes, sir.
put a time table to the full project.
We want all the facts.
I don't need a date right for September 23rd, but something general.
Well, it depends. They may, if they come back and they finish, they finish the feasibility study by this time next year, let's say, this spring, and there is a solution that, and we have the property where we can move the administrative offices or other locations. Some of it may go down to Fairhaven, some of the stock room, other things may go elsewhere. The first step may be to move the administrative offices before we do any work there. That could take a year or 2 years. And then you would have to, and Bob is concerned about the money. But you don't know whether we would move into an existing building. That could reduce the expense a lot. There are many possibilities. And then, but after you move the administrative offices, if that's where we're going to end up, then the rest would have to be phased in over the course of several years. Because, so we're talking
5 years.
5 years minimum.
I just wanted to know how many years after I leave.
Finishing it.
If you leave the board or leave the earth.
Marshall Memorial?
But we really don't know. But I don't think any of us, I think people can correct me. Anyone thinks it's going to be.
Well, you know, based on the sketch of the whole project, I would have guessed somewhere 3 to 5 years to see significant progress. Not nearly completion, but into the process. So 3 to 5 years is when we'll be looking at activity. Okay, thanks. I'll do it.
So do we have a motion on this?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the contract's awarded.
Next is contract 7-13, sale of surplus property, purchase and removal of building at 123 School Street in Hyannis. Unfortunately, we didn't get any bids for this. In looking back at it, we didn't give anyone the option of whether we would be willing to pay for the building and the removal of the building. Whether or not that would have prompted other potential bidders, I don't know. We didn't get too many, we took out the bid packages. If we think that the building has some historical significance that people would prefer that the building would be left intact, then perhaps we can go out with another request for proposal and indicate that we would be willing to possibly pay for the building to be removed rather than go out with a bid for demolition.
How many bid packages did you pick up?
I want to say there were 2, but one was a company, one was a Corkery Tractor Trailer Company in Canton. So I don't know if they were really interested as working on the project or being a sub.
Yeah, putting in an office somewhere, I thought would be a quick way to do it. Is the building, I mean, from the exterior, it doesn't look like there's anything special about it. Is there anything special about it? Is it built extraordinarily well? Or?
If it were historical, we would hear from somebody.
It is historical.
It is? So where are they with this? Would just let us knock it down?
I think it is, but it is.
Well, it's historical because it was built back in the late 1800s.
No, I understand it's historical because of its construction, but if it has a historical significance, some historical society or group would be in the mix here, saying you guys can't take that down for no particular good reason, but just that it's historical, and we haven't heard from anybody with it.
It's not on the register of
Yeah.
historic.
Yeah, imagine it would be. I think we should just tear it down.
So my recommendation would go out for a bid for demolition of the building and associated removal of the foundation and groundwork. Yes. We'd have to contact the state building inspector for a permit for demolition.
Do we have a motion to this effect?
Second.
Motion Motion's made in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Moving on to the airport. Coming on the airport.
He doesn't want it.
From one place to another. No way.
Next, we have the Port Council's report.
Thank you. Actually, the Port Council discussed almost everything that we have discussed this morning. Bob Davis went over the business summary and told us about the humongous variance that he had to make of $25,000. We also, Mary talked about the website design and how, again, how I believe she is somewhat frustrated that it is not finished. I have a feeling she's losing some sleep over this. But Captain Gifford was there and brought us up to date on the dredging the Hyannis Harbor, which, you know, hopefully will be accomplished as quickly as possible. Also, Carl talked about the Palmer Ave lot, and he also talked about the O Plus Pier, and it should be, he feels that it should be ready by the 16th. I noticed that we had some, you know, loads of wood brought in and they disappeared very rapidly. I'm not sure whether the islanders are taking it away or what, but it appears that when, you know, as soon as it hits the ground, it seems to go right out onto that pier and be taken care of. So I think MIG is doing a very good job. They're working, they seem to be working full time all week long. Well, you just talked about the feasibility study, which we, as you know, recommended. And the other thing is we asked management to supply us with a comprehensive list of the different fee structures that we have for the authority. You know, and I'm sure all of you, you know, have, you know, the different fees and the different possibilities are unbelievable. But we would, you know, we'd like to be able to see it on, hopefully, 2 sheets of paper, one for Nantucket and one for Oak Plus, or maybe it'll be 4 sheets of paper, we're not sure. But we, you know, we have requested that we would like to see those, just so that we all understand, so we get a better picture of what's happening. And that's our, that's, I think, our report.
Thank you very much for that.
I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. That's, I'll have to, George is the one that brought it up, and the rest of us very quickly chimed in and said, we'd love it.
Get the Wizzo project finished easier.
Well, I mean, I'm sure others do, but I mean, I get hit frequently by my clientele who are asking me about, you know, obscure, I guess would be the right word, rates or fees that I don't know anything about, but I think if we saw them all in one, if we could actually put it in our pocket and have it with us all the time, it would be great. Maybe we could even find some way to simplify it over time.
Might have to be on a CD, I'm not sure. 2 CDs.
Okay, moving on, old and new business.
This is a statutory requirement, so for those of you who need to take a break, there's probably a good time. In 1997, the board voted to delegate to the general manager their responsibility to approve appropriate minutes of the members' meetings and executive session for release to the public when the publication of such portions would no longer defeat the lawful purposes of the executive session. On July 1st, 2010, the open meeting law was amended to require the authority to review its executive session minutes at reasonable interval to determine which portions of those minutes should be released, and also to require the authority to announce that determination at the board's next meeting in public session, and to include that announcement in the minutes of the meeting as well. Pursuant to these requirements, Wayne has determined that all portions of the minutes of the board's meeting in the second session from July 1st, 2010 through December 31st, 2012 should be released to the public, except for those portions of the minutes reflecting the board's discussions and actions about the following matters. pending or anticipated litigation matters, pending or anticipated collective bargaining negotiations, pending or anticipated negotiations for the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate, contract negotiations with non-union personnel, pending or anticipated investigation of charges of criminal misconduct, information protected from disclosure under statute, and discussions protected by the attorney-client privilege and security matters. As a result, the additional portions of the minutes of the board's meetings and executive sessions through December 31st, 2012 that have been released to the public, subject to the above limitations, include those pertaining to the authority's real estate negotiations with respect to its acquisition of property at 123 School Street in Hyannis, the authority's real estate negotiations with respect to its anticipated swap with the town of Falmouth of the parties' respective properties on Research Road in Falmouth, the authority's potential litigation against Child's Engineering Corporation to recover damages the authority incurred in connection with the design of passenger ramps, platforms, and gangways the authority installed in 2006 and 2007. The authority's potential litigation against Eugene Roslin Ratner for damages due to the elision, my spell check, of the MV Eagle when one of the Ratner's geotextile bags became entangled in the vessel's rudder and propeller. Mitchell Towing and Salvage Company's claim of the salvage of the MV Iano when it broke free from its mooring at the authority's Fairhaven Vessel Maintenance Facility. The authority's strategy with respect to its contracts with non-union employees, including its 2012 pay program for those employees. The authority's contract negotiations with General Manager Wayne Lamson. The authority's real estate negotiations with respect to its acquisition of property at 50 Bernard St. Jean Drive in Falmouth Technology Park. The authority's collective bargaining negotiations with SEIU Local 888 for a new collective bargaining agreement for the authority's reservation clerks and other customer service department employees. And the authority's negotiations with respect to its lease for property at the Martha Vineyard Airport Business Park. So that does it hopefully for this year.
When you say release those, does somebody have to request them?
Someone has to request them, but they are available in case someone does.
Nobody is a vote.
We don't need those.
Thank you. Do you have any public comment?
No public.
No public. On that note, I have a brief statement.
One thing I was asked whether we could change the date of the May meeting from the 21st to the 14th. Whether or not that a week earlier, maybe this would be in Hyannis.
It's not on me.
Wayne, say that again, please.
Whether to change the, request a change of the meeting date from May 21st to May 14th, a week earlier next month.
Is there any particular reason for
Yeah, it's me.
that? No further questions? No further
I'm not
questions?
gonna be here. You're gonna be in the country.
I move that we take the meeting where he's going to be.
Okay, now I have a brief statement to read. No comments?
Doesn't look too brief to me.
I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss the authority's strategy with respect to pending and anticipated litigation and collective bargaining matters because the public discussion of these subjects may have a detrimental effect on the authority's bargaining and litigating positions. The subjects of discussion include the authority's possible involvement in the so-called wind farm litigation pending in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia, where the plaintiffs include the town of Barnstable and the Alliance to Protect Nantucket Sound against the Secretary of the Interior and Cape Wind Associates, and the authority's negotiations with the Independent Steamship Authority Workers Union regarding the authority's unlicensed vessel employees and the licensed officers and Maritime Workers Union regarding the authority's licensed deck officers. The public disclosure of any more information with respect to these subjects would compromise the purpose for which the executive session is being called. After the conclusion of the executive session, we will not reconvene in public. May I have a motion to this effect?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. We're going to take a roll call vote. Mr. O'Brien?
Aye.
Mr. Hanover?
Aye.
Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Mr. Tierney?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We are adjourned to the executive session.